next instalment of our small group sessions as we continue both on Sundays and in the small groups to look at our theme of the Apprentice as we're looking at some of the early disciples of Jesus. Today we're going to briefly look at the disciple who is not so well known. He's known as Thaddeus. And the truth be told, Thaddeus is a little bit of a mystery to us in many ways. Nevertheless, there's one or two thoughts that I think can spark our conversation as we explore some of those early disciples. Why is Thaddeus a mystery? Well, for one, he's actually hardly mentioned in the Bible at all. To complicate matters, the Bible refers to Thaddeus, we think, by a few different names. Jerome, the 4th century scholar, dubbed Thaddeus Triomius, which means the man with 3 names. Thaddeus was one of the original 12 disciples of Jesus, one of the 12 chosen by Jesus, and he turns up in the list of Jesus' 12 disciples that you can find in Matthew chapter 10, and then in Mark chapter 3. Interestingly, the Gospel of Luke doesn't include Thaddeus in the list, but instead we hear mention of another name, and that name is Judas of James, which can mean the son of or brother of James. Judas of James is mentioned again in the book of Acts, in Acts chapter 1. While the Gospel of John refers to a disciple named Judas, who is not to be confused with Judas Iscariot. As only Matthew and Luke mention Thaddeus, and only Luke and John mention a second disciple called Judas, Thaddeus, Judas of James, and Judas not Judas Iscariot tend to be regarded as one and the same person. And it's true to say that Judas was actually a very common 1st century Jewish name. We think Thaddeus might have been something like a nickname for him, just as, for example, Simon was nicknamed Peter. Interestingly, some also believe Thaddeus, Judas, to be the author of the second to last book of the Bible, the Epistle of Jude. Although, to be fair, it's more widely accepted that this Jude is the half-brother of Jesus who wrote that letter. But it's just interesting to see how different people have come up with different thoughts around this character that we're looking at today. So let's call him Judas Thaddeus. And we find that he utters one sentence in the entire New Testament. And this can be found in John chapter 14, verse 22. I want to just give you a bit of context of how he's speaking and the question he asks. The context is this. Jesus and the 12 disciples were gathered together in the upper room for the Last Supper. Jesus was speaking to them about his impending death, and understandably they were struggling to grasp hold of what he was saying, and they had questions and concerns. Now, Jesus promised to give them the Holy Spirit to help them, the Holy Spirit who would dwell with them, within them. But then he says this, "Before long, the world will not see me anymore, but you will see me. Because I live, you also will live. On that day you will realize that I am in my Father, and you are in me, and I am in you. Whoever has my commands and keeps them is the one who loves me. The one who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I too will love them and show myself to them." That's John 14, verses 19 to 21. Confused, Judas Thaddeus asks Jesus this question: "Lord, why are you going to reveal yourself only to us and not to the world at large. Why are you going to reveal yourself only to us and not to the world at large? Isn't it interesting that he felt comfortable enough in his relationship with Jesus to interrupt him with a question, something that was going around in his mind, something that didn't make sense to him. And so he voices it. He asks Jesus. Also, we find that, like most first century Jews, Thaddeus was indeed expecting a great Messiah who would show himself in power to the world like all of the others were waiting. So Thaddeus had expectations and he had questions as well. And the answer Jesus gives to him is in many ways quite simple, though in usual Jesus style, it's a very thought-provoking answer too. He says this, anyone who loves me will obey my teaching. My Father will love them and will come to them and make our home with them. Anyone who does not love me will not obey my teaching. These words you hear are not my own. They belong to the Father who sent me. John 14, verses 23 and 24. Jesus, it seems, was reminding them that their love for God would be expressed through obedience to his teaching. Love and obedience are inseparable for Christians, it would seem. That if we seek to be followers of Jesus, if we seek to follow God faithfully, then love and obedience go hand in hand. And our expression of our love for God is played out, is worked through in our obedience. Those who love and obey God are his children and will receive the Holy Spirit, who reveals Jesus to them. But it seems that to others, Christ may well remain hidden in the wider world. Nothing more is revealed about Thaddeus in the Bible. We know Thaddeus, like other disciples, left his former life to follow and serve Jesus. We believe he endured hardship and persecution like the others. And some of the extra biblical literature, some of the historical writings will tell us that after Pentecost, after the coming of the Holy Spirit in power, Thaddeus took the message of the gospel, of the good news of Jesus, north, where we're told, history would say that he performed some miracles, he preached, and he founded a church in Edessa, an area in modern Turkey. One of the traditions will tell us that he died for his faith, that he was either beaten to death or indeed he was crucified for his faith. So Thaddeus is a little bit of an unknown, a mystery to us in many ways, but even though he just utters one sentence that we have recorded in our Bible, we can draw some great teaching and thought and reflection from that. I'd like you to go away in your groups and read some verses from John chapter 14. The particular verses will come up on the screen, and there are some questions for you to chat to one another about.